Now, last week with Paul and Rudy, they had the biggest fight that they've ever had. It was very much set up in a way that it was written as both Rudy and Paul made mistakes in that situation. And yes, Rudy is a kid. Rudy, even though we as the viewer know about his original life, for Paul, that is a kid, a very talented kid, but still a kid nonetheless, despite all the adult things that he's taken on upon his life. But for Rudy very much has been treating it as a game. So to see Rudy at the end of last week's episode visibly upset and disgusted with himself, hence the vomiting outside the window, but also knowing that Paul can't just be 100% in the right, nor should Rudy be 100% in the right. Of course, viewers and readers will have their preferred which one they side with more, but ultimately it was written as long as they have a conversation when emotions are a little more steady, there's no drinks in the blood, you can have a scene where both are probably going to forgive and apologize. And that's exactly what we got. And Rudy and Paul really have never had that great of a father and son relationship. I don't even know if you could really call it father and son because, you know, from Rudy not really respecting Paul all too much, even though sometimes they had good behaviors between each other, Paul not really thinking Rudy wants his teachings and doesn't really respect him, ultimately they've had a pretty hostile relationship, even if it wasn't always explosive like we saw last week. But for the first time, I think in the series today, they've truly felt like a family. They felt like a father and son. And the fact that the author didn't go the route of just making Rudy say, you know what, Paul is apologizing, I can just say, you know what, I am fine. He said, I have been treating it like a game. That it actually was easy in many ways. It's not like he had it completely easy, and I think what Guy said, I mean, is exactly what needed to be said to Paul, because Paul really was putting a lot of burden, a lot of expectations, and was being unfair, all things considered. And I think one of my favorite lines from Geese is that, would you have preferred him to come back without limbs? Would that make you feel better? Or would you rather see your son being fine and looking healthy? Are you more upset that he looks better than you? And it's something that he needed to hear because it was unfair for a father to put all that blame on his son because he struggled himself. And for Rudy to come out also saying, like, I've been treating it unfairly and I really haven't been thinking things through, asking what was in the letter and really getting to know his father and appreciating what he's done in his 30 years of life compared to what he did in his 30 years of life in his original world. And the idea of when he finally looked at his face after the bartender, MVP alongside Geese in this episode, the fact that he really, I mean, between Rudyard, between the bar owner, as well as, you know, of course, Geese best boy, you have to honestly look at that as really bringing a father and son together, and really to see him see that face of pity and just really understanding that this is a changed man for sure. And the fact of the matter is they kicked the episode off in like the perfect way. The idea of seeing like what he was doing for his daughter the whole time, no matter if it was raining, no matter if he was hungry, no matter if things were bad, he always made sure his kid was safe, was healthy, was well fed, and if she was sick, he didn't care if he got the flu or died in the pouring rain because he made sure she was as warm as could be. You really understand why when you see Rudy punch the father, punch Paul, and she stands up for him, it's because all she's ever known is Paul, the kind-hearted father who helped those in need, helped strangers, protected the sick and the innocent from those who would harm them and take advantage. And to see someone who's apparently, you know, a brother, it's understandable why she's fearful. Of course, we wish it didn't need to be like that, and I'm glad Rudyard was able to say, you know, cherish your siblings, but still, you understand where every character came from in the situation that transpired last week. And the fact is, like, once you're no longer drunk, and once you're no longer just treating things as a game, but really for the first time treating it as reality, you really see two characters come together, and that kind of like reunion scene version 2. Hey, get on your knees, hold your arms open, and I'll jump in. The fact that they committed to it, and the fact that Paul broke down in tears, and Rudy nearly broke down in tears as well, you really get a sense of accomplishment that for both of these characters, things have truly changed. And the fact that Rudy decided that, you know what, you know, searching for his family should be priority number 1, right? And the fact that Paul gave him some money so he wouldn't have to stay and work, like, he's really grown up, and I think this is another turning point for Rudy's character. There's been multiple, but this is like the most crucial one we've seen to date. The fact is, he truly felt like a good son, a good person, and someone who's putting others before himself completely. And don't get me wrong, Rudy's had aspects. I mean, look at Eris and what he's done for her. He's put her before himself at multiple points. But for Rudy, this was a giant wake-up call that, while yes, I mean, despite both of them thinking the other didn't need to apologize, they both needed to apologize, and they both needed to learn and grow. For Paul, he's finally looking at Rudy as a son, someone who's more talented than him, probably will have a better life than he ever will, but ultimately his son, and that he still is a 11-year-old kid for him, and that he shouldn't place the burden. But if Rudy's rising to the occasion and learning, then Paul must have done something good in terms of teaching about what it means to be a kid in this world at this point, that sometimes kids need to grow up faster than in other time periods and other situations, depending on calamities and what's currently going on in their global climate. And for Rudy, he's finally looking at not the past, he's not looking at all the shitty things he's done or the shitty things he's seen. What has Paul done over the course of the past few years? What is he currently standing right here, right now? And right now, he's a pretty good father for his little sister. And rather than holding on to grudges and, you know, what we could have changed, he's recognizing his own mistakes, and he's actually ignoring Paul's because, you know what, right now, we need to work together and let's be a father and son. I was actually expecting them to have a form of reunion, but not necessarily become really close father and son because they never really had that type of relationship. But to see the emotion and the escalation over this episode from Rudyard, you know, giving that words of encouragement, but really getting it through his thick skull, to Geese really just being best boy. I mean, I was ready for him just to be the yes man of the show, but he truly has been one of the most impressive side characters I really enjoy, to even just the bar owner, the tavern owner there, right? You know, everyone understands that families are complicated, especially in a time period like this with situations where entire cities go vanishing. And while yes, Eris, you know, ended up getting a black eye because of her temper tantrum, you appreciate that she was willing to stand up for Rudy that much, and the fact that when she was told about what could happen to her family, the fact that they're most likely not there and things have vanished and they might very well be dead, she said, I expected that that might happen and I'm ready for that. It's just the growth, the development, the fact that Paul looks at Rudyard as someone, I mean, if he's protecting my son, there's nothing other than a good guy there. I don't need to listen to what people think overall about his race. Like, it's just such a powerful, compelling, and beautiful moment where the moral is, you know, people have limits. Rudy has limits. And even though Rudy, when he was telling his bullshit story last week, because Geese was right, he was telling the story so Paul wouldn't worry. But afterwards, in his head, he mentioned that he actually had a pretty good time. He didn't say that to Paul, but he realized, like, you know, all things considered, it could have been worse. And for Rudy to now really accept reality and to accept what it means to, you know, be mature in this situation, and for Paul to finally be a father to Rudy, it really brings a grin to your face where everyone makes mistakes and both of them had things to apologize for, and both of them had things that needed to be said that they were in the right for. And I'm so happy that we reached this point, this another turning point for not only just Rudy's character, but Paul's as well. I think moments like these, you just really can't compare to other fantasy shows out there because you just typically don't get that type of realism where rather than having an isekai main character like Rudy who's just presented as someone who's a positive person, Rudy was a very shitty person in his original life who had shitty things done to him, but I mean, he was the type of person who, when his parents' funeral was going on, he was jerking off to porn, right? He's a character who's flawed, but the whole point about this show and what made it so special is that characters across the board were flawed individuals, and it's how they grew and evolved. Some would be more flawed than others. The idea of being flawed and having mistakes be made and learning to grow, sometimes, you know, Rudy not growing at all, and then other points massively growing. That's what makes a moment like this so special, and seriously, like, this is like the reason I would recommend this show to people, is these past 2 episodes. Because it really represents a journey that truthfully I really haven't seen before, and I'm so excited to see where they're going to go from here. But of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, favorite moment, and what do you hope to see with the remaining episodes of this core. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.